Let's get right into it. Number 1, bone broth. Start here. Because no food in human history is more universal, more ancient, or more directly targeted at gut repair. Every traditional culture that had access to animals made broth, not as a side dish, as medicine. Jewish penicillin, Chinese jukbase, French consommé, South American caldo. Different languages, different centuries, same biology. Here's why it works. Your gut lining, the barrier separating your intestinal contents from your bloodstream, is 1 cell thick. When it's damaged, gaps form between cells. Undigested particles, bacterial toxins, and inflammatory compounds enter the bloodstream. Researchers call this intestinal permeability. Every chronic inflammatory condition has it as a contributing factor. Bone broth delivers exactly what the gut lining needs to repair itself. Collagen, broken down by long simmering into gelatin, provides glycine and proline, the exact amino acids your intestinal cells use to rebuild that barrier. A 2017 study confirmed that glycine supplementation directly reduces intestinal permeability markers. Glutamine, also abundant in broth, is the primary fuel for the cells lining your intestine. When the gut is inflamed, glutamine demand spikes. Broth delivers it in the most bioavailable form possible. Number 2, raw sauerkraut. Before refrigeration, humans fermented everything. Not because they liked the taste, because it was the only way to survive winter. That survival mechanism accidentally created one of the most powerful probiotic foods in existence. Raw sauerkraut, not the pasteurized version in cans, that's dead, is a living ecosystem of lactobacillus bacteria in concentrations that beat most commercial probiotic supplements. A landmark 2021 Stanford study found that a high-fermented food diet increased microbiome diversity by 19% and simultaneously reduced 19 inflammatory protein markers. Fermented foods outperformed high-fiber diets in that trial. The lactic acid produced during fermentation lowers gut pH, creating an environment hostile to pathogens and favorable to beneficial species. That's a direct remodeling of your gut environment with every forkful. 2 tablespoons with 1 meal daily. Make it yourself. Shredded cabbage, sea salt, 5 days at room temperature. Homemade sauerkraut can reach 10 billion organisms per tablespoon. The cost is almost nothing. Number 3, kefir. Kefir originated in the Caucasus Mountains, one of the regions with the highest concentrations of centenarians on Earth. That is not a coincidence. The word kefir comes from the Turkish for good feeling, an ancestral population accurately naming a biological effect they were observing in real time. Here's what makes kefir different from yogurt. Yogurt typically contains 2 to 7 bacterial strains. Kefir contains 30 to 56 strains of bacteria and yeast combined. It's not a single probiotic, it's an ecosystem transplant. A 2021 randomized controlled trial found that daily kefir consumption over 8 weeks significantly improved IBS symptoms, bloating, abdominal pain, stool consistency, with microbiome changes visible within 2 weeks. A separate study found kefir reduced H. pylori bacterial load, the primary driver of stomach ulcers, more effectively than placebo. Kefir also contains lactase produced by its own bacteria during fermentation. Most lactose-intolerant people tolerate kefir fine because the bacteria predigest the lactose before it reaches them. 200 ml of full-fat kefir daily. Make your own with kefir grains, add to whole milk, leave 24 hours, strain, repeat. The grains grow and last for decades. Number 4, kimchi. Kimchi is to the Korean gut what olive oil is to the Mediterranean heart, the foundational food around which everything else is organized. Koreans have consumed it daily for over 2,000 years at every meal. The average Korean adult eats 18 kilograms per year. This isn't food preference. It's cultural encoding of biological knowledge. The fermentation produces Lactobacillus kimchii, a strain literally named after the food, along with dozens of other lactic acid bacteria. Research found kimchi consumption reduced fasting blood glucose and improved insulin sensitivity, not through caloric restriction, but through microbiome-mediated metabolic changes. The ginger and garlic aren't just flavor. They're prebiotic, feeding the beneficial bacteria produced during fermentation. The capsaicin stimulates gut motility and acts against pathogenic species. Every ingredient is doing multiple jobs simultaneously. 1 to 2 tablespoons with at least one meal daily. Takes 2 weeks to ferment at home. Number 5. Raw garlic. Egyptian papyri from 1550 BC list garlic as a treatment for intestinal parasites. Soldiers in both world wars were given it when antibiotics ran out. They called it Russian penicillin. For gut health, the mechanism is specific. One of the most important bacteria in your microbiome is Akkermansia muciniphila. It lives in the mucus layer of your gut wall and maintains the thickness and integrity of that protective barrier. Low Akkermansia is linked to obesity, metabolic syndrome, and inflammatory bowel disease. Raw garlic selectively promotes Akkermansia. Its prebiotic fibers feed beneficial species, while allicin simultaneously suppresses pathogens like H. pylori. This is the critical difference from an antibiotic. Garlic kills the pathogens while feeding the beneficial bacteria. Pharmaceutical antibiotics cannot make that distinction. Critical step most people skip: crush the garlic. Wait 10 minutes, then eat it. Those 10 minutes allow allicin to fully form. Cook it immediately after crushing and you destroy most of it. 1 to 2 raw cloves daily, with food to reduce irritation. Number 6. Wild-caught salmon. Gut health is not just about bacteria. It's about the environment those bacteria live in. Chronic gut inflammation creates an ecosystem hostile to beneficial species and favorable to pathogens. The food that most directly reduces that inflammation is not a probiotic. It's omega-3 fatty acids. Wild-caught salmon delivers EPA and DHA, the long-chain omega-3s your gut lining uses directly. Not the plant-based form that requires inefficient conversion. The ready form, immediately usable. A 2017 study found omega-3 supplementation significantly improved intestinal permeability markers in IBD patients within 4 weeks. The mechanism is direct. EPA and DHA suppress the inflammatory signaling molecules that drive gut mucosal damage. Your gut barrier is a fatty membrane. Its integrity depends on the fats available to build it. A diet high in industrial seed oils builds a fragile, inflammatory membrane. Adequate EPA and DHA builds a resilient one, 2 to 3 servings per week. Wild-caught only farmed salmon has substantially lower omega-3 content and a worse inflammatory ratio. Number 7. Raw honey. For decades, honey was dismissed as just sugar. That conclusion was based entirely on studies using processed, filtered, pasteurized commercial honey, which is chemically little more than flavored fructose. Raw honey is a completely different substance. It contains hydrogen peroxide, methylglyoxyl defensin-1, a protein from bees' immune systems, and over 200 bioactive compounds. It has been documented to kill antibiotic-resistant bacteria, including MRSA, in laboratory conditions. That is published, peer-reviewed science. For the gut specifically, raw honey acts as a prebiotic. It selectively feeds Bifidobacterium and Lactobacillus while suppressing pathogens. A study confirmed that raw honey significantly increased beneficial gut bacteria within 14 days. Trials in IBD patients show measurable reductions in mucosal inflammation. The same wound-healing properties that make honey effective on skin wounds apply, through similar mechanisms, to the gut lining. 1 teaspoon of raw, unfiltered honey in warm water each morning. Not hot water above 40 degrees C. Active enzymes degrade. Warm only. Number 8. Liver. In virtually every indigenous culture ever studied, Arctic to Amazon, the liver of the hunted animal was eaten first. By the hunters, before anything else. That was not ritual. That was nutritional intelligence accumulated over thousands of years. Modern food culture discarded the most nutrient-dense animal food in existence in favor of muscle meat alone. For gut health specifically, liver delivers the highest concentration of retinol, performed vitamin A, of any food. Vitamin A is essential for maintaining intestinal epithelial cells, the barrier cells that determine gut permeability. It regulates mucin production, the protective mucus layer of your gut wall. It governs 70% of your entire immune system, which lives in your gut. B12, also abundant in liver, is directly linked to intestinal permeability when deficient. A 3-ounce serving provides 700% of your daily B12 requirement. If the taste is a barrier, freeze it, grate it frozen into ground beef at a 10% ratio. the flavor disappears entirely. The nutrition remains intact. Number 9. Turmeric with black pepper. This combination has been used in Ayurvedic medicine for over 4,000 years. The pairing is not accidental. It's chemistry that ancient practitioners discovered through observation millennia before the mechanism was understood. Curcumin, turmeric's primary compound, inhibits NF-κB, the master inflammatory switch that drives every chronic gut condition. IBS, IBD, leaky gut, SIBO. A clinical trial found curcumin supplementation significantly increased remission rates in ulcerative colitis patients who hadn't responded to standard treatment alone. The problem: curcumin in isolation is poorly absorbed. Piperine from black pepper increases curcumin bioavailability by 2,000% by blocking the enzymes that break it down before it reaches your bloodstream. Fat enhances absorption further. Curcumin is fat-soluble. Combine all three: turmeric, black pepper, fat, a quarter teaspoon of turmeric, a pinch of black pepper in warm broth, food, or water every day. The Indian subcontinent has some of the world's lowest rates of colorectal cancer. Turmeric consumption is a consistent variable in the research attempting to explain that. Number 10. Miso. Japan has the longest-lived population on Earth. Researchers cataloging the diets of Japanese centenarian communities keep finding the same thing. Fermented soy foods, miso among them, consumed daily across a lifetime. Miso is soybeans fermented with koji mold for weeks to years. The fermentation simultaneously breaks down antinutrients that impair mineral absorption, generates a probiotic community of lactobacillus strains, and produces short-chain fatty acids and bioactive peptides that directly feed the gut lining. A 2020 study found populations with the highest miso consumption had significantly lower rates of gastric cancer, colorectal cancer, and inflammatory bowel disease, even after controlling for all other dietary variables. One critical rule: never add miso to boiling water. Heat above 60 degrees C kills the live culture. Remove water from heat first, then dissolve 1 tablespoon in 1 bowl of miso soup daily. 4 minutes to make. 1,300 years of outcome data behind it. Number 11. Sourdough bread. Bread has been consumed for 14,000 years. For most of that time, it was made through long fermentation with wild yeast. Modern commercial bread, risen in 2 hours with commercial yeast, is 150 years old. In that window, wheat-related gut problems went from rare to epidemic. The correlation is not coincidental. Long fermentation, 12 to 72 hours, transforms bread at the molecular level. Phytic acid is broken down by enzymes produced during fermentation. Gluten proteins are partially predigested by lactobacilli. Studies show sourdough fermentation reduces gluten content by up to 97% compared to unfermented dough. Many people with gluten sensitivity tolerate real sourdough bread without symptoms they get from commercial bread. The organic acids produced lower the glycemic response by 30 to 40% compared to the same wheat in commercial form. A clinical trial found IBS patients who switched to sourdough showed significant symptom improvement. Real sourdough requires a live starter maintained with flour and water. Once established, it's permanent. The difference in your gut reflects the difference between fermentation and mere rising. Number 12. Mushrooms. Mushrooms occupy a biological kingdom of their own. Their cellular structure is closer to human cells than to plants, which is part of why they communicate with human biology in ways plant foods cannot. The compounds relevant to gut health: beta-glucans, complex polysaccharides that act as prebiotics, feeding beneficial gut bacteria while simultaneously modulating immune function. Ergothioneine, an antioxidant your body cannot produce that specifically protects the gut lining from oxidative damage. A 2021 study found that daily shiitake mushroom consumption for 4 weeks significantly increased gut microbiome diversity and reduced inflammatory markers, comparable in effect to probiotic supplementation. These are not exotic foods. They are in every grocery store. They were in traditional diets before monoculture agriculture replaced them with nutritionally empty calories. Number 13. Fermented beets. Before synthetic supplements, Eastern European populations maintained gut health through fermented vegetables. Beet kvass was central to that tradition, consumed across Russia, Ukraine, and Poland for centuries. Beets contain betaine, which supports stomach acid production and liver function. When fermented, they deliver Lactobacillus plantarum, one of the most studied probiotic strains, documented to reduce intestinal permeability and decrease the bacterial toxins that leak through a compromised gut wall and drive systemic inflammation. Fermentation also adds lactic acid for gut pH regulation, and the deep red betalain pigments, potent antioxidants that reduce oxidative stress in the gut lining itself. Chop 2 raw beets into rough cubes. Pack into a glass jar. Add 1 teaspoon sea salt and filtered water to cover. Leave at room temperature for 3 to 4 days until tangy. 1 small glass, 60 to 100 ml before meals. The color will alarm you. The results will not. Number 14, cold-pressed olive oil. Mediterranean populations have the lowest documented rates of inflammatory bowel disease, colorectal cancer, and metabolic syndrome on Earth. Researchers studying their diets for decades keep finding one consistent variable: daily cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil. Olecanthal, a phenolic compound in high-quality olive oil, inhibits the same inflammatory enzymes as ibuprofen through almost the same mechanism. Without the gastric side effects, without the intestinal damage, the anti-inflammatory effect is measurable within hours. The polyphenols in EVOO directly feed Akkermansia muciniphila, the gut bacteria responsible for maintaining your intestinal mucus layer. Low Akkermansia is consistently associated with obesity, diabetes, and inflammatory bowel conditions. What to buy? Cold-pressed extra virgin. Not light, not refined, those are processed oils. The distinction is not marketing, it's the difference between a functional food and a processed fat. Number 15, raw apple cider vinegar. This is not a wellness trend. This is a 5,000-year-old medicine. Hippocrates, the man medicine calls its founding father, used apple cider vinegar to clean wounds and treat digestive disease. That was 400 BC. He wasn't guessing. He was observing what worked. Here's the biology. Your stomach needs an acidic environment, pH between 1.5 and 3.5, to break down protein, kill pathogens, and absorb minerals. Most Americans today are running a stomach pH of 4 or higher. That's functionally broken digestion. Raw ACV contains acetic acid, enzymes, and live bacterial cultures. 1 tablespoon in water before a meal begins to correct that pH within minutes. 2019 study in bioscience, biotechnology, and biochemistry. Daily ACV consumption significantly improved gut microbiome diversity in 12 weeks. Not a supplement, not a prescription. Fermented apple juice. Start here. If you only add one thing this week, make it this.